I'm Matt Reynolds, and this is my podcast.
I can do the job, but running the business is quite difficult. What a lot of tradesmen lack, and I was probably one of them, is business skills.
I don't mind making mistakes. You learn from your mistakes.
Information is all around you in the minds of people that work beside you.
Welcome back to the Trench Talk podcast. I'm your host, Matt Reynolds, and today I spoke with director Andy Buerckner of Platinum Travel Corporation. The idea of these discussions, for those of you joining us for the first time, is to go into the trenches of achievement and talk not with people who are orchestrating from some lofty perspective, but to those high performers who are actually in the trenches honing their craft. That has included guests from the worlds of business, sport and entertainment, all of whom are on the front lines doing amazing things. Platinum Travel is a family-owned and operated agency with offices in Australia and New Zealand. They won the Travel Agency of the Year in 2018 and the Corporate Travel Agency of the Year in 2019. Here's why I wanted to talk to Andy for this episode, and we do cover this during our conversation, but I watched a recent interview he did with the Sky Business Channel, and he spoke about the travel industry and how the current coronavirus pandemic has decimated almost the entire sector. Many providers in the travel space, including not only travel agencies like Platinum, but airlines, hotels, tour companies, cruise ship providers and the like, have seen their revenue drop to virtually zero, and it happened overnight. But it gets worse. And here's the bit I hadn't thought of until I watched the Sky Business interview. Not only did their revenue stop, they had to start the process of handing back past profits in the form of refunds as travellers began to ask for their money back due to enforced travel restrictions. Coronavirus has obviously impacted many businesses around the globe in various ways, and many have lost at least some of their revenue. Losing some, however, is quite a bit different from losing all revenue and then having to give your past profits back as well. The logistics of how that is done and the mental impact on both employers and employees in the sector are challenges the travel sector has had to face for the very first time. It's not all bad news though. As you'll hear, Andy believes that coronavirus may actually be very good for the travel industry and has started to identify opportunities he believes will emerge as travel returns. During our chat, we covered a lot, including working through the impact of coronavirus, travel trends, working with family and how to best communicate with team members, networking, a couple of stories from, let's just call them wayward corporate travellers, chasing those highly valuable, at least for some, gold and platinum frequent flyer status and membership levels, the coming opportunities for the travel industry, and as always, much more. To find out more about Andy, you can connect with him on LinkedIn and you'll find Platinum Travel Corporation at ptc.travel. If you enjoy Trench Talk, head to xrm.com.au/podcast and opt in for the newsletter. We'll make sure you're notified when every new episode of the show is released. Trench Talk is available everywhere good podcasts are served, so if you're feeling super nice, please leave a review, comment, rating, or whatever your chosen podcast platform allows. A special thanks to my brother Rick for setting this one up, who, by the way, has just released with his band Stone Horses their latest album, Good Old Days, and the title track of that same name has debuted in the top 40 in the US. So certainly after you listen to this podcast, you should go find Good Old Days on Spotify and give that a listen too. Enjoy this chat with Andy Buerckner. Andy, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Now, mate, I'm in my home office tonight. It's a pretty wet Melbourne evening. Whereabouts are you located this evening?
Unfortunately, I'm also in Melbourne, so I can feel your pain. I'm cooped up in Richmond, but thankfully pretty close to a park, so I do have some greenery. Otherwise, it'd be a bit of a concrete jungle for the next 6 weeks of stage 4 lockdown.
Yeah, we're on the eve of being well and truly refined to our homes, aren't we? As Victoria tries to deal with this coronavirus outbreak that we just haven't been able to get under control. So the basic, a lot of industry shutting down, right? Look, a lot of nervous business owners out there at the moment.
Yeah, look, it's a disastrous time, I think. You know, there's many industries who have been hit very hard early on, and then it's slowly sort of run its way through the economy. And now I think we're at the point where, as we've discussed around construction and the trades, they're now starting to feel it in line with stage 4 restrictions. And look, I think we all know everyone right across the economy is going to feel the effects of this virus for years to come.
Yeah, I think it's a long road back, isn't it? Whichever way you sort of look at it, you can't just turn the economy off for the amount of time that we have and then expect to be able to flick a switch and have it all come back. So I want to get to this, but just for some context, the reason that I really wanted to talk to you was because I saw an interview that you did recently on Sky News, because as a business owner, I'm sure many business owners have felt like I have, that everyone's taken a bit of a hit through this. And it wasn't until I watched you do that interview that we all dealt with, as I said, a bit of a loss of revenue. But the travel industry is actually in the position where you haven't only lost all of your revenue, but you've had to give back a lot of the revenue you've taken over the last 12 months. So I want to get to that. That was the reason that I wanted to talk to you and sort of how that's unfolded. But I thought we should start with your company, Platinum Travel, what you do, and then what indeed corporate travel is, because it's a bit more than just booking your weekend away at the Gold Coast, right?
Yeah, correct. As you said, Platinum Travel Corporation, we've been around since 2009. We do primarily corporate travel. We do holidays or leisure travel. We also do event management. So corporate travel is travel for businesses, not just individuals. It generally consists of a very tailored package of technology and expertise that ends up delivering business travellers and the companies with increased efficiencies, visibility, safety, and data. So if people haven't travelled for business before, when it's on their dollar, really it's all about booking through one travel company like Platinum. It's usually one central form of payment, and ultimately it's ensuring that a company policy is adhered to. Everything's charged back to the one card for company visibility, and that, very importantly, they know that you're safe when you're travelling and they know where you are. That's corporate travel in a nutshell.
So what do you mean by know where they are and safety?
So it's a duty of care component. A really good example is, say, for example, you were travelling for business that you worked for and you had gone over to Japan to visit a site, and the tsunami rolled in, as it did years ago. As a company, to wake up to that news and to know that, you know, you had a plant or an operation in Japan, to hear that news would be very worrying about your staff, because ultimately you have a duty of care and you're responsible for the safety of your staff, even when they're travelling. So you really need to understand where they are at all times. And I don't mean like a Big Brother style understanding of exactly where you are on each street, but you need to have instant visibility of your itinerary. And for some companies, they might have 150 people in Japan at one time. So there's interesting systems where you can, say, circle Japan or APAC or wherever it might be that we're talking about, and quickly get a very high-level overview of exactly who is in that region. You can send bulk messages, bulk emails. You can call for emergency services for those people. It's just a way of understanding where they are and, of course, getting back to the families who are all pretty quick to get in touch with the company when things go wrong.
And did you have to deal with any of that as coronavirus moved its way around the globe?
Yes and no. Because it was never at the point where it was so serious early on for us, it wasn't a disastrous outcome for anyone. We had obviously a lot of people in the US and in Europe and other parts of the world that we had to get home. And as borders started to tighten up and restrictions started to come into place, it became more difficult. But I think we were pretty lucky in many respects. We worked with very good companies and good people, and everyone made their way home pretty quick. We didn't have any irresponsible travellers who jumped on a plane out of Australia a day before we were due to close the borders and then hassle us to get back in. It all worked okay, but there are a lot of companies who have dealt with that over and over.
I guess if you've got, as you said, 150 people moving around Earth, from time to time there's going to be issues, right? And it's not only, I'm assuming, natural disasters. You've got political situations that can break out and all these other things too, right? So it's just about keeping track of everyone and then, I suppose, having the resources, right, to be able to deploy if something does go wrong, which is, I'm guessing, the role that you play too, because if you don't deal with it and understand how these systems work with airlines and bookings and that sort of stuff, I guess it just takes a lot more time than what it should, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah. I mean, you can imagine, say, if you were, the CEO for a large company and you had, we'll use that same example, 150 people in Japan or in Hong Kong is a good example around political issues. And you knew that you really had to get those people out quickly. if those 150 people weren't booked through one central platform or company like Platinum, then how easily would you have access to the information that they've booked with? How would you know where they're staying? How would you know their itinerary, what their departure is? Obviously, you can contact them, but if you can't contact them, if they don't answer emails or answer their phone, then you don't even know where they're staying. It's a big discussion around centralised and decentralised travel programs. Some companies prefer and allow people to have their own way of booking travel, and that might be directly through the airline and then through third-party aggregated hotel sites or direct through the properties themselves. Some people really like that. But as a rule, for a company level, it's far easier to understand where everyone is and have all the payment come back through one platform and ultimately have visibility of all of the data and trends and patterns, which they can then use to go and negotiate better airline deals and hotel agreements. It's a bit of a complex web.
Yeah, because I was going through your website today in sort of preparation for this conversation, and I didn't realise that you did events and conferences to the extent that you did. So there's a couple of examples there of where you've taken several hundred people overseas, organised the whole event, entertainment, the whole lot. And it starts right back at, obviously there's initial planning for it, but you'll put up a website that everyone in like a franchise group, for example, can go and book through and choose their own options and that sort of stuff. Have I got that right?
No, spot on. Well done. So it's called a registration site. So it's no different if you were registering for a big expo. You go on, you register your details, you choose your preferences, and then ultimately you would attend the event. So that's the same for us. We just deal with the company who needs that site, and usually they're large multinational companies, and we will fully design and build that registration site based on their preferences. They'll then send it out to all the delegates or members or staff, depending on the client and the event. And then we will offer different services, but generally it's full airfare services, negotiated accommodation rates, transfers, guest speakers, gala dinners, theming, team building activities, absolutely everything, and then get everyone home and then provide the company with all the data around the event, even to the point where we have systems for actual in-event services. So if you were standing on stage presenting to 2,000 people in the audience and you had a thought-provoking question and you raise a question, something like, to the audience, do you think that the borders should be open or they should be closed at the moment? And rather than everyone putting their hand up, you could say, everyone pull the app out, see question 2, click yes or no, and then within 20 seconds, that presenter has the percentages of yes and no on their screen, and that might pop up straight on the screen behind them. So it's all very interactive. And yeah, events are pretty advanced these days.
And then how involved do you get then in building the policies and procedures around travel, which for me, this is going to sound silly to anyone who's ever worked for a big corporation because they'll be well aware of it. But I actually was unaware that being a smaller business operator that these things actually existed. So there's a lot that goes into what you're allowed to do and so on and so forth on the protocols around what you can book.
Yep, spot on. Generally, we offer advice and guidance, but as a rule, most companies have something in place already. There's been a few times where we've helped design travel policies from scratch for startup clients, but mostly people have something in place, and they range from one-pages right through to 20, 30-page booklets, almost about what you can eat and where you can walk on your travels. Some are very strict and others are very loose. But as a rule, it's always about which airline you should be travelling with as part of the client's preference, which is where they're getting the best discounts or the agreement. It's where you should stay. It's which class you should be travelling in, depending on where you're travelling. So domestically, it's generally economy all the time, and it might be over 6 or over 8 hours where you can fly business class or premium economy, depending on the client. That's generally what a travel policy looks like in its loosest form.
I guess the obvious question is, how do you make money? And the reason that I ask this is because with the rise of your Airbnbs and booking sites, where does the money come from for you as a corporate travel planner?
The bread and butter for us is transaction fees. So again, I'll use you as an example of a traveller. If you booked a flight to Perth and you use our online booking tool, then it might be a let's call it a $15 charge. And that would be for you to jump on, use our software, book in line with your company policy, travel. If you stayed at a hotel that wasn't within the company policy, if you jumped on any old hotel, we might pick up a little bit of commission, but that's very rare these days. And there's no commission in domestic airlines anymore either. So the way that we make our money is in that $15 transaction fee. And it's critical for us that we make that as automated as possible through the use of technology. So really, we're looking for a few dollars in that transaction fee, which might be profit, and the rest is going towards the licensing and the work that goes into building those tools. And then the cream would be what are called overrides, and that's around back-end payments from airlines. So that might be someone like Qantas. If you had a growth target with Qantas, where if you hit a certain amount of sales with them for the year, they might pay you a very, very small percentage on that total volume as we'll call it a reward at the end of the year. So it's a problem for the industry in corporate travel because fees are very, very low. I think the public generally assumes, and even a lot of companies assume, that we make a lot of money through commissions. But the truth is, we're very reliant on the transaction fee itself and then back-end payments. And if you're not growing, then you're not really just sitting still, you're actually going backwards.
So you've got to build automation into those payments just to bring down the labour cost and then grow on top of that. So that's where I guess the profit comes in, right?
Yeah. So really you're looking for companies who are proficient with online booking functionality. So someone like yourself who can jump on, book that flight to Perth, book that hotel, book that car hire. And then once that booking comes into the office, it's meaning that one of our consultants doesn't need to touch that booking. It goes through and does an auto invoice, sends it back to you, provides you an itinerary in your inbox and via the app, and then you travel. So technically we haven't touched the booking at all. That's ultimately how we make our money. It has to be automated. And then if you have troubles on your booking, on your travels, or you need further assistance, then you might need to call us. And then of course we charge fees for us to touch the booking or to provide you in-person service.
Fixing those issues is very important when you're away, particularly in overseas, and it can become a bit of a worry quickly, right?
That's spot on. And that is an important cost to consider. The cost becomes pretty irrelevant when you're stranded in an airport or in another country. If you had to book direct, you'd have to be dealing with the airline directly, which if you're not at the airport at the desk can be quite difficult with wait times. Or even worse, if you book through a Skyscanner or a BestJet or one of those online sites, then it's generally far more difficult to get through to them quickly and to get the assistance you need, as opposed to calling us on the other side of the world, getting through within 5 seconds and speaking to, hopefully the same person that made the original booking.
Yeah, there's a reason those sites can sell things cheap, right? And it's not because they over-service you when you have an issue. At least that's
right.
That's what I found in my travels anyway. Now, a big component of what you do is collect data out of the travel, which, price is the obvious one, right? We're spending X amount on hotels each year. What can we get as a better deal for next year? But what other ways do companies use that data?
That's mostly what it's for, to be honest. It's about identifying cost-saving opportunities more than anything. So it's about really analysing fare classes with certain airlines, redirecting people to booking different fare classes within one carrier. And that's something that a lot of companies don't realise early on, is that, even with economy, with Qantas, there's 5 or 7 or even more. I'm actually not an airline expert, but they have many fare classes and each of them have different price points. So you can get very fiddly with data and use it to your advantage by then tailoring the booking tool functionality and the programs that companies like Platinum build for clients to make sure that you are actually saving the most amount of money possible. But the same applies with hotels. It's about finding the right hotels and not just trying to negotiate the absolute cheapest rate with them, because a lot of hotels work differently. They might offer a point of sale discount on a certain room type, or others will actually give you a fixed rate for a company regardless of the room type that's available. So the cheapest fare might be $250, but we might negotiate $280 for you and your company. But what that means is even if the penthouse is the only room still available, you can walk in at that $280 rate.
And there's an insurance policy built into that, right?
Yes.
that extra money that you pay is virtually an insurance policy that you actually get the hotel or whatever, right? Because you don't want to be landing in, well, anywhere in the world, right? Maybe late at night or something like that, get to your hotel and they say the old, oh, sorry, we're full. You need that reassurance, that particularly if you've got business to do or to, you may have an early morning meeting or something to do, a function or whatever that night that you have to be at. And you just need that reassurance that it happens, which is, I suppose, effectively what you're doing with that, right?
It's also just a way of balancing the cost out. It's a form of budgeting. And you can go with the cheapest or the best discount on the best fare of the day, which many companies do. But of course, the problem is if you then want to book around a peak season and you're used to paying, $220 a night for that accommodation, or between $220 and $300, if you then find out that there's only suites available and the whole city's booked, then you're all of a sudden paying $700-800 for that same room type. Whereas with the fixed rate model, where you are paying a little bit more on average, you at least know that you can walk into any room available for a slightly higher fare.
Then who's an ideal client for you, an ideal company, I suppose?
So we set up back in 2009. All of our directors, we're a family business, but pretty much everyone in our leadership team came from a very large global travel management company. And it was a company that dealt with the likes of, the National Bank and KPMG and PwC and the federal government. And these are clients who are spending literally hundreds of millions of dollars a year on travel alone. So they're highly complex, very, very time-consuming, very low yield, and just, to be honest, very exhausting programs to run. So for some of us when we retired and for others when we moved on, we set up Platinum with a pretty clear goal to only deal with clients who spend, on average, less than $5 million. That's our sweet spot. And the reason we play in that space is if you're spending $1 million a year, generally you haven't got a full team in travel procurement in the corporate company. So we're dealing with the EAs, the general managers, the CFOs, the financial controllers. It's usually only one or two people in that company of that size that we deal with, and we build a very, very strong relationship with them, and that provides a good bond to that client, which of course we benefit from, and as do they. We don't love contracts either. We've always been big on not locking either party down with a contract. We just prefer to do a good job and not give them a reason to go to tender, which is what a contract does, because ultimately it ends after a couple of years and then the client is encouraged to go out and look for a better price. So that's an important part for us. But really, we decide, we've always said we'd rather have 100 $1 million accounts than one $100 million account. Simple as that. If we lose a couple of clients here and there, if they get purchased by big global companies or if they go under or whatever it might be, then it's not going to break us either, and we're not going to have to get rid of staff. We've got a real love for all that people in the business. So thankfully, in 11 years, we've never really had to actually get rid of anyone because we're going backwards in growth or because we've lost any large account that employed those consultants directly.
Yeah, well, it's a diversification model in some ways, isn't it? The way you've gone about it there, which is a smart thing to do in business. Do you ever deal with any strange or unusual or weird travel requests from time to time? Do you have any of those that sort of come across your desk, or is that not really your thing?
Look, probably not so much travel requests. We do have some weird and wonderful feedback from clients at times, and we've had some pretty scary or daunting stories provided to us by both travellers and suppliers alike about the behaviour of some travellers. So there's some strange people out there. Look, I'm not sure if it's a story I should really tell on air, to be honest, but we've had guests who have just completely lost their mind overnight, and the hotel has called us and said that, this guest has spread their feces all over the walls and the bed and they're just screaming at people and running up and down the hallway, and because their view looked onto a brick wall and they thought they were having a harbour view.
Oh my goodness.
So it's, there's some pretty difficult conversations to have with the supplier.
I was thinking more along the lines of I only stay in rooms with like red curtains or something like that. That's a bit extreme, isn't it? Really. making your mark on your room, the hallway, and probably the hotel. So yeah, what happens in that situation? I mean, do you have to go back to your client and go, look, we've got, just picking your name, a CFO Bob over in Singapore at the moment, who's destroyed his hotel room. How are we going to approach this? Because I'm guessing that as the travel company and making that booking, that your name is in some way on that too, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, because we made the booking. The hotel in that case would understand that the guest works for a company because their name would also be attached to it. But the hotel on this particular occasion called us directly and said, hey, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
this is what's happened. And frankly, we're not paying for the cleaner to go in there and handle it. This guest has left. They haven't paid for the room. We're obviously going to charge the card on file for the room. But we actually need to charge the card on file for all of the cleaning, and it's going to be in the hundreds of dollars. So are you okay with that? And that then becomes a pretty difficult conversation for us because it's not our card on file, it's the client's. And you have to call the travel contact or the CEO or whoever it might be at the company that this person works for, and then have the difficult conversation and tell them what happened and say, I'm sorry, but you're going to be up for the bill and you need to understand how your employee behaved because it's reflected very, very badly on you as a company to the hotel. And they're questioning their relationship with both us as a travel provider and you as a contracted partner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would have thought that the more interesting conversation was when Bob lands back in Melbourne or wherever he comes from and has to answer to the rest of the company or boss or superior or whatever as to why that would happen. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
No, I did say it probably wasn't the best thing to talk about on air. But look, it's not something that we've dealt with often, to be honest. And as a rule, we've got fantastic clients, and I've always been very strong in saying that we've got a no dickhead policy in our business. If we don't like you and you treat us badly as individuals or as people, we frankly don't want to do business with you, and we'll walk away from the relationship. And naturally in travel, particularly in business travel, you do come across some interesting characters. Travel's a very, very emotive category.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I've thought that often.
It really is. Like, particularly when you think of different procurement categories in a company, it might be stationery and fleet and property, and then travel. But it's the most vertical for one because it touches usually everyone from first year grads or front desk receptionists and anyone else in the business right up to the CEO. And it just comes naturally with emotion. So it's a really difficult category to manage both internally as a company and then, of course, for us as a travel company as well.
There's a lot of status wrapped up in that, and I suppose a bit of ego from time to time creeps in with classes and where to stay and all that sort of stuff too, right?
Yeah, status is either, if you look at things like the Qantas frequent flyer program or Virgin's equivalent, or any airline for that matter, I'm still undecided whether they're a really good thing or a really bad thing, because it does create a divide, and those who do have the highest status obviously deem themselves more important than anyone else. And I'll put myself in that category. I'll stand up and say, I'm a platinum Qantas frequent flyer member, and there's something about walking past everyone lining up at the gate when you've got your platinum call, whatever it might be, and you walk past and you sort of scan, and it's not a good thing. It's a terrible, almost power to have. And I could tell you countless stories about not issues that we have, but even sales meetings that I've had personally where I've gone and met people, and in this case it was actually a celebrity that I went and met with based on a referral, and sat there and he asked me many, many questions about what I did and what the business was and whether I could help him and their business, which I could, of course. And then he turned around and said, well, look, I'll cut to the chase. I'm currently a silver member with Qantas, which is, you don't get much benefits with silver. If you can't get me the chairman's club, I'm not interested. You can get out. And it was that blunt. And the chairman's club is, red, bronze, silver, gold, platinum 1, and then chairman's. And that's pretty much reserved for politicians, corporate CEOs who their company spends millions and millions of dollars through, and just, seemingly very important people that Qantas want to invite into that very exclusive club. But it's not a decision for me to make to just introduce this person to Qantas and say, this guy wants his chairman's club and calls himself a celebrity, so please let him in. So on that occasion, I literally just picked up my bag and walked out.
Is it invite only?
Definitely.
It is. Okay. So not only do you have to, well, basically, let's face it, you've got to be on a plane, 2-3 times a week, really, to sort of even be considered, and then do, probably a fair amount of long haul with that as well to be eligible for an invite. And they're not given out that readily. So it's not like a lounge pass, is it?
No.
You can get from time to time if you know the right people.
No, I think there's don't quote me on this, but I think there's something like 4,000 or so people in Chairman's Club. So it is very much invite only. If they're sort of at their quota, they generally don't add a whole lot more people. And I think for Qantas, it has to be signed off by Alan Joyce. It has to be a recommendation from someone else as well. So there are a few rules around it. I'm not in the Chairman's Club, so like I said, don't take any of that for gospel.
Yes.
But you don't necessarily have to be flying every second day. You can be a Platinum 1 flyer with all the benefits. But if you're not recommended or signed off by Qantas, then no, you won't just automatically be moved up into the Chairman's Club.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that a lot of these companies do need policies in terms of how and when they can book their travel is because if they didn't, most people would spend their time working out how to go the most expensive and longest way to get the most points to maybe one day get one of those invites, right?
I've got another story for you there if you'd like it.
Oh, please. I love stories at this level because, well, I don't know why. I just enjoy them. Shoot.
This one involves less feces. It's a really good example you make of people basically dodging the system for their own benefit. So again, that's where that status comes into play, where people are striving for a higher tier or increased benefits for their own personal use. And it comes up way too often. So generally for international travel, we actually don't recommend that companies align themselves too much with one or even two airlines, because there's so many international airlines that fly into Australia and so many, spot specials that it actually can work out to be more advantageous to have an open policy for international travel, depending on the client, of course. But we had one client come through to us one day and they were booking just a flight from Melbourne through to London. And they spoke to one of our, most experienced consultants. And this particular traveller said, I need business class through to London on this date. What have you got? And Richard, our consultant, provided the traveller 3 options. And it may have been Qantas at, say, 10,500 for business. It may have been Singapore Airlines for 8,500, and then Royal Brunei for a great special of 4,700. So that raised the question for the traveller to say, Royal Brunei, I haven't really heard of them. Are they a good airline? I've heard of Singapore Airlines. Obviously, I fly with Qantas all the time. And Richard said, you know what, they're a great airline. The product is very good. We've had great reviews. The beds in business class are nice and comfortable and big. The only, perhaps negative or drawback with Royal Brunei is that they're a dry airline, so they don't serve alcohol. But if you really need it, you can buy your own bottle and actually take it with you on board.
Oh, BYO style.
BYO, which, speaking my language there. And this traveller sort of thought about it and went, look, I really like a nip of whiskey before I go to sleep on the long haul flights. I'll take Qantas. And it just baffles me. Like, that's a $5,800 glass of whiskey when you think of it like that. But it's not his money. It's right. The company's money. And, technically Qantas is in policy or business class. It would have been approved. And it's just great. And they're just some of the decisions that people make when it's not their money. And it all comes down to how strict or how many levels of approval, or indeed who the approvers are in those companies as to what people get away with.
Yeah, I've heard a few stories similar to that. And also, we can't meet on Thursday. I can't meet till Friday and wherever. And, why is that? Oh, because there's no Qantas business class flight that gets me in on time. But obviously there's another 5 airlines that could get you there, but no, I only go Qantas. So I need the points and that's what I'm going to do, regardless of the cost, right? So I'd hate to think how much money is wasted by companies, and individual travellers who are trying to make the most out of these schemes that the airlines put in place, right, to get your business, and they're very, very effective.
Even to the point where I see a group on social media around Frequent Flyers Australia. And it's quite incredible to see these people asking for status run routes. So they'll say, look, I'm 6 status credits short of achieving platinum or retaining gold status, and I need X amount of points or legs flown. What's the best way to achieve it? And they'll go and spend, like someone will come back and say, to get that you need to do business class to Bali and then across to Singapore and then come back via Auckland and into Sydney and down to Melbourne. If you do that, then you'll get those extra credits and you'll be fine. And then people will go and book and pay for that. Thousands of dollars, go and do it on a Saturday and come home on a Sunday just for the sake of either retaining that status or going up a tier. And I can tell you that there is not that much difference between gold and platinum status. It honestly amazes me, really amazes me.
So not for the purpose of any kind of business or personal trip, but just to go and do the flight to get it.
It's called a status run. Yep.
Yeah, wow, okay. Status runner. I haven't heard of that. Never done one either. So
no, neither have I.
Let's move on because I want to obviously get to the situation that you're in now. But to sort of lead into that, can I take you back to maybe a slightly better time in business, maybe kind of like mid to late last year, and just get your thoughts on the industry and where you thought you were going as a company and what your outlook was at that point in time?
Yeah, sure. So look, this time last year was good. It was really good. Good in some ways anyway. So we won 2018 Agency of the Year, and then we won 2019 Corporate Travel Agency of the Year as well. So we were starting to be really recognised after 10 years in the game. We were experiencing between 20 and 35% year-on-year growth, which, as I said before, ties back to the cream that we need. And, you know, good reputation, great team, everything was looking up. And then, of course, the coronavirus hit, which we'll no doubt talk about. But I did still admittedly have a few yips with the industry, just a few doubts, I guess, about the future as it was, of course, before the pandemic. And that's only the case because, you know, corporate travel in particular is very commoditized. It's very, I'm not sure how many people listening have read the book around the red ocean and blue ocean theory, but the red ocean is very bloody. It's a fight. It's a race to the bottom. And that's exactly what corporate travel is. There's very few businesses, ours included, that have a real unique selling point. So naturally, we have to compete on price. And of course, with lower prices means a skinnier margin, which means you have to cut costs somewhere, which might be in the quality of staff or the technology or the staff benefits of your own business or whatever it might be. If there's not a huge amount of profit, then you haven't got a great business. And then, of course, you might not have the best business to provide the clients with the best service. So it was becoming more and more of a problem. And to add to the issue around corporate travel management companies having a unique selling point, even worse was the fact that we're starting to get pinched even more by suppliers as well. So even commission levels on international airfares are becoming less and less, well, almost non-existent. There's other little bits of incremental revenue that we've earned over the years as part of segments flown with airlines and through technology partners, and they're all leaving as well. So it's at the point where we actually have to start going back to clients and talking about increasing fees. And I guess because we've for so long now gone year on year in negative, in a fee declining environment, that it's all of a sudden quite difficult to start going back up based on the fact that our revenue model has changed, particularly in the last 5 or 10 years. So that's been my fear and why I'm personally very, very driven to create a really unique selling point that does set us apart from our competitors. And look, everyone's got their selling points, but the reality is, if I'm very honest, I mean, we all sell the same, if not very, very similar technology. We all have global buying power or affiliations that provide perceived buying power. We all sell the best service, but you'll never know until you actually start dealing with us. So you can only base it on reputation or client retention rates, or actually staff retention rates is a really good one. That's where my fear has come from. You just seem to work very, very hard for very, very little. And then around the retail or the leisure travel space, I mean, there's also a myriad of issues there. And funnily enough, I actually think the coronavirus is actually going to be the greatest thing for retail travel in the long run. And we can probably talk a little bit more about that once we start talking about the virus itself.
Yeah. So were you sort of making any business decisions, strategic moves, like with these thoughts in mind, or it was just something that you were observing at the time? And had you actually started to do anything about that at that point, or was it just an observation?
No, look, I'm a natural networker. So I love talking to people. I'll literally drain my phone of battery almost every day, calling people and speaking to people and going out for coffees, and that's just who I am. So I'm naturally always pitching ideas and talking about anything and everything with people, and I'm very lucky to have a very good network of both mentors and friends and colleagues to bounce these ideas off. Look, I've definitely got some big ideas. My personal challenge is that I'm a right brain oriented person, so I'm genuinely a big thinker, and that's what I love to do. But the issue is that I'm also quite comfortable walking away from a project almost as soon as it started. And it's a real challenge that I have, and I hate detail. So it becomes a challenge because if I've got a big idea, I need to really sell it to my team to get them to buy into it and then take it on as a project, and then they manage the detail. And then I need to keep focusing on either further detailing that idea, or in many cases, I've literally just moved on to something else within a week. So it's, everyone has their strengths and challenges. It's about forming the right team, which I think we have now. And I'm very, very fortunate that my beautiful sister is my co-director and business partner, and as is my dad. And we're all so uniquely different. My dad's an absolute corporate commercial beast who's been, in the travel game for 40 odd years and has seen it all. And then, as I said, I'm the right brain, big thinker who focuses on tomorrow. And then my sister is, highly detail oriented. So she absolutely loves it, and she questions everything that I put to her, sometimes until I absolutely crack it and walk away and say, fine, don't worry about it, and move on. Or in some cases, if I can actually justify what I'm saying to her and she believes in it, then I know that it's in really capable hands. And then she takes it and then deals with our operations manager and our technology managers and implementation team to then start to roll those ideas out, of which I, of course, stay in contact with. But in many ways, my job is done there. I've provided the idea, and then I move on to thinking about new concepts and new ideas. So it really has highlighted for us how important the right team is. And interestingly, one of the best investments we've ever made as a business was having a detailed or an in-depth DNA analysis of our leadership team for that reason.
It's really important, isn't it, to have someone, like in your case, your sister, that you really need to sell an idea to, because otherwise a lot of ideas get off the ground, right, and then don't get carried through, as you've just said. So if you have that person who you've got to get past, in a sense, then first of all, it guarantees that it's, a half-decent idea, and second of all, that it might actually get done, right? Because there's so many ideas that get thought of and passed around that can't get off the ground and can't get completed. So it's a really important aspect of a management and leadership team, almost the fact that you've got to sell each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you said there's a DNA analysis of your leadership team. What does that mean?
I got introduced to a workplace futurist, and I had absolutely no idea what that was when I was first introduced to this guy. But, he was speaking my language. As soon as I met him, I just dumped all of this information on him about my challenges with the industry and where I see it going. And then, of course, pitched him a few of my very, very big ideas about where I'd like to take it. And he wholly supported it, and he understood it all. And then his role was to come into the business and understand the people within the company, and then start to focus on our culture so that we become a workplace for the future, I guess, which goes back to his title. But the first thing that we did, and interestingly, the most valuable bit of consulting work that we've ever had done was this DNA analysis. And I'm sure a lot of people listening or a lot of people in the past have done, maybe disc profiling, or I believe there's all kinds of different models, which they call them. But the disc profiling is essentially putting you into different categories based on a very quick assessment, like a questionnaire. It just makes you work out if you're naturally a sort of a marketing person, or if you're a control freak or a detail person, or in many cases, someone who just loves to be direct and likes people to be direct back to them. So that's an easy way to quickly understand all about all of your team. But the DNA analysis was really quite detailed. It was probably a couple of hours to complete the assessment, and then it was a one-on-one meeting with this consultant. And we talked in depth about our individual strengths and our challenges. So, for me, it was all, I was in the sort of top 1% of most genuine and open people, which leads to me being very, authentic and transparent, which I think I am. And I sat, well and truly into the right brain category. And then, as I mentioned, my sister Sarah was very much in left brain, and she was in the top 1% of most cautious and reserved people. So we really are the polar opposite in terms of DNA. But really importantly, what that meant for us as a team is, and this is a really valid example, is that I've always been a Monday person. I've always loved Mondays. And I'll get up in the morning, I'll jump in the shower, I'll be excited about the week ahead, even to the point where I might have ideas floating around in my mind, and I'll write them on the shower screen, I'll take a photo of them, and then I'll bounce into the boardroom or into the office on a Monday morning for a team meeting, and everyone will be sitting around there with eyes half closed and pretty disinterested at that point at 9:30 or 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. And I'll be almost bouncing off the walls with enthusiasm and ideas. And I'll pitch the idea like it's the greatest idea in the world. And Sarah, my sister's reaction instantly is, but why? But why? Why would we do that? But how's it going to work? Why? And it's over and over. And in the past, before this DNA assessment, that to me came across as pessimism and negativity. And I was becoming really frustrated with bringing ideas to the table in the business and feeling like I didn't have really an important role because no one validated my ideas. But now, having understood everyone's strengths and challenges within our leadership team, you just naturally understand on a much deeper level how people are going to react to your idea. So I focus on Sarah first with my big idea. If she gets through it and goes, okay, look, I think we should have a look at it, then it moves into our operations manager, Lauren, and maybe Doug, our tech manager, and a few of the others, and they're all the process-driven detail people. So what I've learned is that there is absolutely no need or no purpose in pitching a big idea at someone like Lauren, my ops manager, because she doesn't focus on the high level at all. She can't see the big picture. All she sees is the detail. And she's thinking about 17 months down the track, but what if this problem comes up? Whereas I'm battling going, I don't care about that problem. That's ages. We'll work that out when it comes. Just focus on the big picture. And she just can't. And that's not a problem. It's just about understanding different people's brains and how they absorb information, and then finding an outlet for those ideas, of which I turn to my marketing manager, Laura, who balances very well. She's almost both right and left brain. So she puts up with my big ideas and my ramblings, but then also can absorb the information and then put that into production with the rest of the team. So it was a very interesting exercise.
And once you understand how, for instance, Sarah, your sister, operates, then you can be very wary if you share an idea and they agree with it straight away, right? Because it's maybe not a good idea if that happens, and there's people have different ways of understanding things. So particularly important, I would have thought, having worked with family myself before, just so important to have that understanding, because you do have relationships outside of the business and you can't just turn them off, because you will see them at birthday parties and Christmas dinners and the rest of it, right? So it's just so important to go to that level and have that understanding.
Yeah, it's something that we've always feared as a family, no one more than my mum. Yeah, she's not actively involved in the business. It's more so Sarah and I, and then Dad to an extent. But it is a huge risk working with family, and I'm sure we could all find and talk about many examples of hearing families fall out because of business disagreements or shareholdings or whatever it could be. But I'm just confident, I think, because we are just such different people and it works. We're a very close-knit family, but not in the way that we hug each other and say, I love you. Like we're quite a commercial family in many respects, but I think that's just the way that we are. Again, it's our DNA and it just works.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So everyone's very different, but I'm very, very grateful for my family for that reason, and of course for the opportunities that my parents have provided both of us.
That's really good to hear. So as we're sort of moving through the latter part of 2019 last year, I guess you're coming into Christmas, you've got a few ideas, maybe sort of starting to work on some of them. Corporate travel, is Christmas and the holiday season a busy time or?
No, dead.
Okay, so it's pretty quiet.
Yeah. Corporate travel shuts down from 10th or 15th of December. Everyone has already checked out of the office and they're into Christmas parties and whatnot. So it doesn't really pick up again until, look, in most cases, Feb. January is a write-off. So you have to budget for that really bad month of the back half of December and January because your revenue will drop usually about 80% for that month. Yeah, that'd be a walk in the park these days based on the last 6 months. But on the other hand, retail travel or holiday travel usually does see a bit of a spike over that period. Maybe not about just people actually going on holidays, but people in more of a relaxed mode around Christmas, especially in the first few weeks of January. That's a time when they start to think about where they might travel that year, and they start booking their, European holidays for June, July, August, when they're on a local break or they're at their holiday home or they're just enjoying some downtime in January.
And then February, you're starting to see the transactions come through for those 6 and 8 months sort of down the track. No, I understand that. So this year, when did you first fear the coronavirus was going to be a big issue for you? And I've said this a couple of times in the podcast before, but I still remember for me very clearly because I had a number of conversations with different people on the day that they were deciding whether or not the Grand Prix was going to go ahead here in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of the general feeling was that they're not going to cancel the Grand Prix for a cold, we thought. And then all of a sudden, within like a 24-hour period, like all the drivers left, it was off, and then it's deteriorated day by day since then, basically. So where were you and do you remember the moment that you thought we might have a little bit of a problem here with travel?
I don't remember the exact day, but I just remember it was the week of around 17 March, thereabouts.
Yeah.
It was earlier in March that we were starting to hear the rumbles and hear more about the virus, and it was starting to get a bit of airtime. And the majority of us, I would think, were non-believers that it wasn't anything that serious, that everyone needs to settle down a little bit, even to the point where I wrote an article to our entire database saying, obviously, I'm not taking anything away from the effects that this virus is having on people around the world, but we also have to be realistic. The world isn't going to stop. I've still got my trip booked to Japan and North Korea in May, and I'm sure I'll be sitting there in the airport reading the front page headlines of whatever they are at that point, but I'm sure it won't be this bloody virus. And if I had those few minutes back to not write that, it'd be good. But honestly, that's how quickly it changed. It was and is such a fluid situation that literally hours between writing something or saying something, it became outdated. So I think the real realization point for us was late March, where we saw the confidence from corporate travellers start to drop. We saw the numbers. We saw the suppliers start to make announcements about cancellations. We started to get a lot of our retail clients, our holiday travel clients, who we have a large database of people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, all starting to get very concerned about their health, which is very understandable, and started to call through and make cancellations. And then the corporates were calling and saying, we need to add a second layer of approval for any trips booked in the next 2 weeks until we hear more about this virus. And I guess it still didn't quite hit home. And then, it was sadly my birthday on the 25th of March that I remember standing up to our entire business. We had a town hall meeting, and I said on that day that I'm really sorry, guys, but everyone is stood down without pay. We went from full-time humming business, everyone busy, everyone going really well, heaps of positivity, to literally within a couple of weeks going, I'm really sorry, guys, you're going to have to go down to 2 days a week. And people sort of turned around and saying, look, I understand it sucks, but I can't do this for very long. I'll commit to doing 2 days for 2 weeks. I need to go back to full-time. in a couple of weeks. And then it was literally within 4 days or 3 days of announcing that change to people's employment that we then turned around and said, you know what, I'm sorry, it's not 2 days a week, it's no days a week. We have no revenue. And that was it. So end of March, we stood everyone down without pay, and we were in a holding pattern there, just absolutely hopeful that there'd be some government support, whether it was state or federal. And then, of course, Scott Morrison came out and announced that there would be some form of support for businesses. And we heard about them when they came out, which is good. And then, of course, the JobKeeper was the most critical one for our industry, because we were hit so hard and so quickly that it at least kept people in a role. So we actually only made 3 redundancies that week. And we just thought that, you know, they were the roles that would probably be the ones that would take the longest to come back, regardless of what this virus looks like, whether it was a 1-month thing or a 2-year issue. So we made those decisions there and then and hoped that we wouldn't have to make any more in the next few weeks. And thankfully, with the JobKeeper, we haven't.
So everyone after that point has stayed on up until now?
Yeah. So the whole team is still on, which is fantastic. And I'm incredibly grateful to be in a country like Australia with the government support that we do have. Of course, we're all going to pay for it for a long time, but it has been a fantastic way to keep people employed and, to an extent, keep people engaged. But we only had about 20% of our people actually doing useful work. And then over the months that have been, we've slowly pulled more and more people back into work now, to the point where I think we're at 80 or 90% of our workforce actually doing useful work, but it's still only to the JobKeeper amount. So in most cases, it works out to be 2 days a week for everyone.
Just going back to when it hit sort of that late March period, that was when it started to take hold in the US, right? I was meant to go up to New York late in March, still very hopeful, of course, until like the day before, and you're like, it's not going to happen. It really took hold in New York. And then one of the conferences that we're meant to attend in the Jarvis Centre, that got turned into a hospital emergency ward with the ventilators and all that. So it just, you're right, it just happened so quick. So the bit that I didn't understand about the travel industry in its entirety is that you need to then give that money back, right? Which is a big problem to have on top of revenue that has gone to zero.
Yeah. I mean, it's very dependent. With corporate travel, that wasn't so much the case. You know, we charge transaction fees. As I said, that's our bread and butter. So if you had already booked that trip and you were going as an employee of a company, then you would have paid the transaction fee that's associated with an international booking. And technically, we have fulfilled our duties in booking that trip for you. And then when you had to come back and cancel it, I'm not sure if we did or if we didn't, but we probably should have charged a cancellation fee or a refund fee when you came back and asked for a cancellation. So that's corporate travel wasn't as much of a problem because there are transaction fees attached. It was more so around the leisure travel space. And I'll use a good example. Say, you know, yourself, your wife and your kids had booked a trip with Platinum this time last year, and you were all going to go on a Pennant cruise to Antarctica. That's a big cost. You know, we do get a small amount of commission with that booking. We may have picked up, 5 or 10% on the total cost, and it may have been $30,000. We may have picked up $3,000 for our time and efforts in building that trip for you. And then as the year has gone on, you've waited patiently, you're all ready to go. In June, the virus comes, the cruise is cancelled. Pennant advises us that they're offering a full refund. Probably actually not a great example because they didn't offer refunds, they offered credits. But a lot of different suppliers offered refunds. And then if you called me and said, Andy, I want to get that refund, you're not going to expect $27,000 back. You're going to expect $30,000 back. So all the work that we did to create that booking for you, which may have been 3, 4, even 5 days, 30, 40 hours of work in building that itinerary and dealing with suppliers and doing the documentation and having in-person meetings with you and your family, we then had to give it all back. It's really quite difficult. And of course, we could have turned around and said, look, Matt, I appreciate the situation, but that's the revenue that we earned from your booking last year, and stiff bickies, here's $27,000. But it's just not the business we are. And frankly, we didn't have the terms and conditions to cover us in a situation like that, because obviously people cancel all the time and sometimes that comes with penalties, but you just wear them occasionally and you think, well, it's a shame. They've obviously cancelled for a reason and they'll book again and we'll make that money down the track. But when virtually every single booking you have cancels and everyone wants a refund, then, yeah, you really are just digging into every dollar that you earned for the last year or whenever they made that booking, and you're handing it all back. So it was a very bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's effectively a run on your business, right? After this sort of started to happen, I sort of wanted to dig in a little bit, if you're comfortable with it, Andy, with the psychology of that, because, look, most of us can handle a bad day or a bad meeting or a bad week or maybe a bad couple of week period. But when you start to feel like there's no hope in the immediate future, can you talk a little bit about maybe how you were feeling at that time and actually how you dealt with that? Because I couldn't imagine what you must have been feeling.
Yeah, to be honest, it's actually not about what I felt, it's how I feel, because nothing's changed for us. It's still going. This is still an evolving situation for everyone, and it's starting to now affect more and more industries. But the reality is we've been fighting this for 4 months at least, nearly 5. So for me personally, I think I'm probably lucky that I'm naturally a very optimistic and positive person. So nothing too much gets me down. I'm very relaxed and level-headed on a good or a bad day. And of course I get stressed, but generally when I get stressed I just go a little bit quiet, and people might think I'm a little bit off, but I don't yell, I don't scream, I don't really show a lot of anger, and I don't show a huge amount of fear, but I will show vulnerability. So the way that we've dealt with it has just been to be completely honest, for one. We've been honest with our clients, whether they're leisure or corporate or events. We've made them clear about the pain that we're suffering, and that's not for a need of sympathy, probably a little bit of empathy, to be honest, but we're just hoping that they at least understand and can empathise with our situation. And otherwise, look, I've just had to accept the situation for what it is, and what does help me sleep at night is knowing that it's nothing that we've done that's put us in this position. And I have had someone say to me, well, it's pretty irresponsible as a business owner to not have sufficient cash reserves to get through a crisis like this. And you've got to think, well, Christ, that's a lot of money. That would have to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that would have to just have this sitting there in an account in what is a very low yield industry. I mean, I've spoken to nearly every business in the industry now, and no one was in that situation. Even the publicly listed companies have had to go out and have further capital raising to find enough funds to survive. So I'm lucky, I'm positive. Again, I'll talk about Sarah, my sister, and she's naturally not. She's, probably, as we said, more cautious and reserved. So she carry a lot of fear around the future. And one thing that does keep me going most days is that I'm not a religious person, but I do almost think that this is very self-centered, but I almost think this is my opportunity. If we talk about this time last year when I was having doubts about the industry and whether it was the right path to pursue based on all the challenges that come with it, it's almost like something has struck down across the earth and they've said, here you go, Andy, here's your opportunity to rewrite travel. You can come back bigger and better, and at the same time, I'll probably take out half of the industry that you're used to. So it's almost like a little bit of a clean slate model. I've always been really, really proud to promote the fact that, we're privately owned, we're family owned, we're debt-free. As a business, it's always been something that I've been proud to promote. And now I'm just going to have to accept that we're going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. We've burnt through our cash reserves, and it's something that we didn't have a lot of, admittedly, because I don't back down from this decision at all, but I've always been far more focused on reinvesting all of our profits back into the business for the benefit of our staff and our clients, whether it be technology or staff benefits or whatever it could be, to ensure continued growth as a business. So we never had a lot of cash to fall back on. So it's fallen on us as owners to put in personal capital to keep the business going, which, as we've said to all of our staff and clients, we're comfortable with that because we're comfortable and confident of a bright future. And if we have to go down the line of government loans or whatever it might be in the future, then that's what it will be, because things will get better and the industry will be cleansed a little bit from a lot of competitors. And I think with the right mindset and the right people and the right goals, that we'll do really, really well in the future.
There's not a lot of hope in the immediate future, particularly as our lockdowns get worse and more and more strict. So can you talk a little bit about why you wouldn't just exit the industry?
As in why we haven't just shut the doors and walked away.
And maybe come back when travel returns, yeah.
As a corporate agency, you can't go into hibernation. That's probably the best word to use. If I owned Andy's Travel and Cruise on Glenferrie Road in Hawthorn, and I had 2 staff and we were on the JobKeeper, and all of our clients had booked their big holidays to Europe, and I managed to get out of my lease or the lease ended, and I could remove a lot of the monthly cash burn or get it down to an absolute minimum, then absolutely I would go into hibernation. I'd benefit from the JobKeeper and any government grants to keep the business there and to keep the people there as long as possible, hoping that things would get better by March next year. But if they didn't, then, hey, I'd probably go and look at another industry or get some supplementary work and hope that things do get better in time. But as a corporate agency, it's very different because it's taken us years and years to build up a book of clients that are either contracted or that we've got great relationships with. So we're responsible for clients who have travel programs locked in with us, where we're dealing with, in some cases, thousands of people in that business or corporation, and we have agreements with them. So they still expect service, and rightfully so. People are still calling and booking hotels in Warrnambool because they have to go down there and see a client or whatever it might be, back when you could leave your house in Victoria. But we've got clients with offices in Brisbane where they're still travelling intrastate. And before the New South Wales and Queensland border restriction came in, there were some corporates travelling domestically on aircraft between the 2 states. So we're still working. As I said, we've got nearly all of our team working. It's just that we've got virtually no revenue. We're doing about 1% of our normal revenue.
So have you found it a struggle to keep the team motivated, only working those 2 or so days a week? Because it's a dramatic change in circumstances, right? And one thing that I've certainly learned is that different personalities do well in different economic environments. If you're a high energy sort of risk taker, then maybe a tech startup is somewhere where you would gravitate to. Whereas if you're on the side of safety, you wouldn't want that risk, the juice in some ways that can come from that. So because you've got a team, you're growing, you're building, going along really nicely, and then all of a sudden coronavirus hits and it's a different environment, has that been a challenge to manage that period?
Yeah, definitely.
Or the period up until now, because in Victoria, as you said, right, we're in a worse position now than we ever have been through these last 5 months now. So there's still a long way to go for us.
Absolutely. And if we went back to, as I said, my birthday on March 25, to think that we would be in stage 4 lockdown with a night curfew in August, maybe at that point I would have said that's ridiculous. Everyone's fired. We're closing the doors and light the building on fire and walk away. But it's just an evolving situation. So, look, in regards to the team, I'm really grateful that we've worked really hard on our culture and the procurement of the right people over the years. And we're very, very lucky, particularly in our leadership team, that we've all worked together in previous companies as well, for the most part. So I actually watched something that my ops manager, Lauren, shared with me yesterday, and that was around the fact that the best teams don't just work well together in the good times, they work really well in the bad and even sideways times. And that's really evident for my leadership team. It's something that I'm so proud of them for the way they've not just behaved, but the way they've adopted the family mentality, understanding that, of course, we're a family business, but also respecting that each and every one of us is a family in our own right, and that we really are all in this together. I've got to pair that with, you see the best and the worst in people as well. There's been a few disappointing examples of staff behaviour, and you work through those as they come in. But for the absolute large part of our team, they've been nothing but supportive, very, very understanding. Even pre-JobKeeper with the stand down, they were understanding and supportive. And the way that we've managed it really is just by being very, very honest. We're not hiding behind any walls and pretending that things are good. We're constantly giving updates about what we understand and what we know about the industry and all the challenges that we're currently facing as a business. We've never pretended that we've got a heap of cash. Always been very honest there. I think everyone understands that without the JobKeeper or government support, we'd all be in serious trouble, as would everyone in the industry. And probably the best way that I personally keep people engaged and positive is exactly what I mentioned earlier on this discussion is around the big ideas. It's about the opportunities that are coming our way. You know, I'm relatively active on social media, and like I said, I'm a big networker, so I talk to people all day, every day. And by remaining positive in what is the darkest days of the industry, people are naturally gravitating towards us as maybe the future. And that's a good thing for our own team to understand and respect, and that we're not lying down. We're not just going to go away because a virus has come across the earth. These things happen. Yes, it might be one of the 100-year pandemic, but it will pass. And I'm really confident we're going to be there on the back end of it. And I want everyone in our team to be there to enjoy the success that we have in the future years. And I'd absolutely love to reward every one of them for their loyalty and their commitment to us as a business. But at the same time, I'm also very open in saying, please go and get other jobs, get supplementary work. If you can get a full-time job, take it, because there is still a lot of uncertainty around this industry.
So this is more for the benefit of people listening, but I've just got two quick questions before I want to spend a bit of time on the opportunity, Andy. But will you, one, change those terms and conditions to better protect yourself moving forward? And then two, once travel does return and you've got the means to, will you keep more cash than you previously have?
Yes to the first question, and probably no to the second. Yes, a big project for us has been the terms and conditions. And like I said, it's something that we should have done years ago, but it's something that very, very few in the industry have in place. So it's going to be a good thing for the whole industry moving forward. So we have done that, and we're excited to roll that out for future bookings, so we feel a little bit more comfortable and secure. And in regards to the cash management, no is my blunt answer. I'd still go back to reinvesting into the business, and I'm not going to sit there with a big cash balance and just hope that we'll continue to grow based on reputation and whatnot. Like, we have to keep investing in the most current technology and the best people and the best processes, and we need to keep investing in our team. That's the main one for us. And in the future, there probably won't be a lot of cash for a while, because we're going to have to work at making the money back and paying down on the loans and the debt that will come from this crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said that COVID could be really good for the travel industry. So moving forward, what do you see? Where is the opportunity? How do you think it'll change? I think, like a lot of industries, as you've mentioned, that I guess the players who are on the fringe will probably get weeded out. Again, I think that'll probably happen in a lot of different industries. But how do you see it playing out for yourself going forward?
Look, if I speak on behalf of the broader industry, particularly around leisure travel, I think that as an industry we're largely undervalued. There's a lack of perceived value in booking with a travel agent, and I completely understand and respect why a lot of people have that view. So I think that needs to change in the future. And half of the problem is that it's difficult to think that people are going to respect you or us as an agent or an agency if we don't respect ourselves. What I'm really leading to there is we haven't charged fees based on that booking that I talked about for you and your family to Antarctica. So instead of having a secure deposit, or instead of standing up and saying, no worries, Matt, appreciate your booking, it's a $500 per person booking fee, and everything is booked at net, no commission, anything else, that is just our fee for service, and we're going to give you an unforgettable dream holiday, then that's okay. We would be proud in our service. We'd be comfortable in the fee that we charge. And hopefully you would walk away going, I know that I got a good deal and I'm happy to pay for that service. And it's hard not to compare our industry to, say, accounting firms or lawyers, where they charge, in some cases, just crazy fees. And we don't really question it. We might not be happy with it, but we don't question it. And that's because you can't just go online and get the right legal advice quickly. Well, not yet anyway. I'm sure that's an industry to be disrupted. And the same applies with a good accountant anyway. So I think we need to move towards a model where we're far more transparent. We need to be less reliant on the traditional commission model. We need to start charging fees and being upfront about the money that we make as a fee for service to clients, and you pay them for expertise. And what I'm probably most excited about is that, as I said, was a bit of a natural cleanse of the industry. We're going to remove maybe some who just don't deserve to be in the industry. And again, it's difficult to get consumers to see value in the industry if we haven't got the best of the best. So even if we lose 50% of the industry and we're only left with the people who are absolutely dedicated to travel and have a great client base, and they create, these amazing trips for people and people gravitate towards them, then that'll be a great thing. That'll be good, as opposed to having the other 50% who maybe make errors or don't have a very good knowledge base, and therefore people don't have perceived value in their service.
I think you're onto something there, and I think that definitely looking at it in that sense probably opens up a lot of other options and stuff around travel as well, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing revolutionary about my thoughts there. I think that's just what is going to happen and what a lot of people would be angling towards. We just naturally need to reinvent what travel agents do. And I actually think an important part of that is not referring to ourselves as travel agents anymore. I think we might need to be, travel advisors or travel planners or whatever it might be. I think you need to, as a part of reinventing the industry, start to align ourselves more with mortgage brokers, or maybe it's travel brokers, because travel agents is just maybe just very 60s and 70s, and this crisis has provided an opportunity to redefine what it is and how we do it for consumers.
You've mentioned a couple of times that you're a natural networker and do a lot of that. Where does that come from? Because the skill of networking, although we all do it, you definitely know a good one when you find them, if that makes sense.
I'm not a member of networking groups. I found zero value in them, to be honest, in the past. I have tried a couple, but when I say a natural network, I have a lot of people in my phone contacts, and I'm not afraid to call them. I've spoken to a lot of people before about mentors as well, and they sort of wonder how you get mentors or going and paying for people to be mentors. And again, I've just never been afraid to ask people. So anyone who I respect in any form, they could be younger than me, older than me, in a completely different industry, but if there's something about that person that I like, then I naturally gravitate towards them. And I've got probably 5 mentors myself, all from different industries, and they all have their different strengths that I respect. And, you've got your very commercial, hard down the line, I don't give a shit about people. It's just about the money, that mentality. It's important to have that occasionally. And then I've got others who define success as family and health and happiness, and others who are in between. So for me, I think it's just natural for me. I love talking to people, and I'm very, very lucky to have a lot of amazing people in my network. I went to a private school out in Ringwood in Melbourne, and there's obviously a lot of good families within not just private schools, but any schools. And if you're a good person, other good people gravitate towards you. And I've just maintained a lot of relationships, and they've paid dividends because they're the people that you naturally work with as the years go on. And all of my closest friends are all successful in business. And of course, I leverage their families and their relationships they have. And organically, your network just grows very, very quickly if you base your success around a small group of other successful people.
So just a couple more here, Andy, and then we'll wrap it up. Any favourite documentaries or books that you've enjoyed or recommended over your business journey?
Sure. I had this grand plan at the start of the coronavirus in the sort of first lockdown when we couldn't go to the office, that I fully expected that I was going to watch a heap of documentaries and also read a lot of books. And it hasn't really happened, and that's just naturally because I've got so much work to do. But one book that I've read multiple times, and those who know me well know that I really don't read very often, which I wish I enjoyed it more, but I don't. The one that I always go back to is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's just such a powerful book, particularly for people like me who are dreamers and big thinkers. It's about understanding why your business actually exists. And it's a really good example for corporate travel, as I've explained before. He talks about this golden circle model, 2 circles within another. And it's pretty easy to say what you do. We do corporate travel for businesses. How do you do it? With the use of technology and good people and systems and processes. And then the most important circle within the other 2 circles is why. Why do you do what you do? And I think that's so powerful, because when I first asked that about myself, I couldn't answer it. And to an extent, honestly, I still can't answer it for our industry. I stand very tall in that I love what we do, and I think that we're damn good at it. But I still can't put my finger on why it is exactly that we do what we do. So that's a book that I really keep going back to. And as I talked about before, about a few big ideas that I have, I know exactly what that why is. And I now need to go and try and achieve that, because that will be what defines us as a true, unique corporate travel business moving forward. So if anyone else hasn't thought about that one, I'd highly encourage Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And then he moves into other books, Find Your Why. And he's got an incredible TED Talk that you can watch for 20 minutes on the Golden Circle, and that'll save you a few hundred pages of reading if you're that way inclined.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic TED Talk, that one. It's a question that I've asked myself a fair few times through this coronavirus period, because when you put under, let's just say, a bit more pressure, I guess, than you normally are, then naturally I just went to, am I really enjoying this? Like in a lot of different areas of my life. And that might be exercising, and why am I speaking to this person? Do I really need to? Am I enjoying it? Does it fit in with what I'm trying to achieve? Like, I found myself asking that quite a lot. It's an important question, because you can lose your way quickly if you're not careful, right? So it's a good one to keep going back to.
That's just all about self-awareness, isn't it? You're right. It's not just about business. It's about relationships and family and friendships and everything you do in life. You can narrow it in and really start to question your why on a daily basis. So it's an interesting, philosophical question.
If you could have one law changed or implemented, Andy, what would it be?
I don't know if it would be a law, but look, I have been relatively vocal about the government support for industries that really need it based on the coronavirus. And as much as I don't want to talk about this pandemic anymore, of course, it's what's on the tip of my tongue on a daily basis. So I think that perhaps selfishly, I hoped that with JobKeeper 2.0, there may have been a little bit more of a tiered approach to support, and I'm not taking anything away from the fact that I'm so grateful that support has been extended past September right through to March, because it means everything to my business and all of our staff. But I guess I just hoped that after 4 or so months of review that they may have come out with more of a tiered approach, where, say, those who were still 30% down, legitimately or illegitimately, would receive something, but then that would be like a scale approach down to those who were 90 or 100% down. And you start to look at, obviously, travel and tourism, aviation, hospitality, arts and entertainment. They're all the industries that have been hit hard and first back in March, and will also be the longest, they'll take the longest to recover. So I would have hoped for a little bit of extra support for those businesses. And I understand that you really can't be industry specific, because everyone is very different. But the fact of the matter is, anyone who's accessing the JobKeeper has to qualify with revenue testing anyway. They have to show data based on their monthly results. So that's why I just hope there may have been a bit more of a tailored approach. And look, maybe in the future, in the coming months, there will be. But that would be the one thing that if I could change it, I would.
For those outside of Australia, the JobKeeper is the business relief package that the government has been giving businesses to help them continue, and it pays employees their wages. And basically the way that it worked was around March, there was a month that you had to compare your revenue with the previous March the year before. And if you're at least 30% down, then you did qualify for this JobKeeper payment for your employees. But what you've just said, Andy, is that if you're 31% down, or you're 150% down, as some people have been in the travel industry, then the exact same payment has been administered or quoted from the government. So with your tiered approach there, you're saying that if someone's 100% down, then they probably should get a little bit more help than someone who's just 30% down. And it probably goes a fair bit to say how serious this is, right? If we're saying just 30% down, in business terms,
that'd be a walk in the park.
That's right.
We could have made some quick adjustments and we'd be on our way. But as I said, though, any support is better than no support, and I am very grateful for our team that we did keep everyone on board, because there were others in our industry who made mass redundancies, like 80%, 90% of their team in the first week of April. And, a lot of those people have now moved out of the industry, and those businesses will struggle to come back as quick and as strong as we do, because we're planning to not just come back, we're going to come back a lot better than we were this time last year.
That's awesome to hear, and a great attitude to have too. So if someone wants to get in contact with you, you're really active on LinkedIn, so you can find yourself pretty easily there. And then your website is ptc.travel.
That's right. It can be ptc.travel or it can be platinumtravelcorp.com. So I'd love to talk to anyone in business. You can be small, you can be large. But if you're interested in having a very open and honest discussion, which I'm sure you've gathered from me already, I'll provide my thoughts on how we can offer you a good service. And if we can't, I'll tell you that and let you get back to doing what you do best, and that's running your own business.
That's awesome, mate. I wanted to let you get to the remainder of your night, although there's maybe not too much of it left now. We've run for a while here tonight, but that's good. It's been a great conversation. Thanks for doing it, because I know it has been a pretty tough time for you, and to come through with the positive attitude that you have and the vision you have going forward is really something that we can look at and learn from. So thanks for sharing your thoughts and your insights. It's been a blast.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, everybody. It's Matt again. Thanks for listening. Just a couple of things before you guys clock off. You can get all Trench Talk episodes at xrm.com.au/podcast. You can also sign up for other goodies at the same site. Just plonk your email in there and you are covered. That's X for X-ray, R for Romeo, M for Mike.com.au/podcast. If you really like what I'm bringing you, please head to iTunes, subscribe to this show and leave a review right there. And lastly, if you want to contact me directly, type the @ symbol followed by Mr. Matt Reynolds into your search bar and you'll find all the social links. Goodbye.